Hey everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Writing Wednesdays. So here we have a brand new question. Let's have a look. Several languages are in danger of extinction because they're spoken by a very small number of people. People say that the government should spend public money on saving these languages, while others think that this is a complete waste of money. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. So, first things first, I'm gonna have my main ideas and voting ideas. All right, so this is a discussion essay. Anytime you see discuss both views, you know right away that you've got a discussion essay. So that's very easy, that's very straightforward. Nothing much to do there. This is probably one of the easier question types to figure out. So I need to figure out if which is my strong opinion and which is my weak opinion. Do I think that the government should spend money? Do I think that it's a waste of money? I think it's actually a waste of money. So I'm gonna go ahead and people should spend public money. So the government should spend public money. That's gonna be my weak opinion. So I'm gonna write about that first, and then they should not spend public money. That's going to be my strong opinion. So that will be number 2. So first I need to create a main idea sentence about spending money to promote endangered languages. Spending public money to promote endangered languages could be helpful. However, think of your main idea sentences as a pair. If you take these two sentences together, if I just delete this whole thing, right, and I just write however, right, it's got a nice flow to it, right? That's why we use words like however, on the other hand, although, despite, and not just these. Any kind of a transition helps to create this kind of a flow state that makes reading very enjoyable for the reader. Okay, so spending public money to promote endangered languages could be helpful. However, this money could very well be spent on other more useful, more important avenues, or things, or avenues, or fields, whatever word you would like to use. This money needs to be spent, or this money could be better spent other more useful and important avenues. We don't need the commas here. Other more important avenues. There we go. There's other things, like education, healthcare, defense, so many things. I mean, poverty elimination. I can think of so many things off the top of my head. In fact, let me write that down. Education in general, the amount of money you spend on education, that's indirectly going to, not indirectly, I mean directly, in fact, going to help, the entire country. Languages is whatever. If you really want to learn a language, you can do it yourself. I don't think that, I think it would be smarter to spend money, for example, in science, technology, all these things, right? And then, of course, there's other things like social expenditures, such as, poverty reduction, and of course the most important thing, possibly healthcare. I would put healthcare over here, and then there we go. So there's other things, but I don't know, this, let me just try to think of some other ways. This money could be money is a limited resource. Okay, no sentences, just write in short form. Right, limited resource. Spending money on endangered languages means you have less money on less money for other, well, I don't know, my main idea says you have to spend the money elsewhere, so I think this is fine. maybe I can change the main idea. Okay, however, there it is in bad taste, or it's a bad idea, or it's not wise. Spend, I've already used public money, spend taxpayer money on, let's say, spend taxpayer money. It is whoever spending taxpayer money for such causes is unwise. Why is it unwise? Because money is a limited resource. And of course, if you want more money, you can always print it as the government, but printing leads to inflation and decreases the value. So that's not a smart thing. It's not wise, right? That's why I've used the word unwise. And then also that if you spend money here, then you have less money for other, important causes such as education, health, social security, and etc. Stuff like that. And ultimately, if people, no amount of money spent on promoting these languages is going to make them, it's one of the, it's like a money pit, right? These languages will never be popular. Or you can think of it like a return on investment. Return on investment is very low. If you invest money into healthcare, you make your population healthier, that of course is going to help you, because let's say, one person, one human being, okay, you give them healthcare and they, work for, I don't know, 200 days a year, and they're healthy for all of those working days. That means that they earn more money, they pay more money in taxes, right? But if they work less because they're sick, that means they earn less money, they pay less money in taxes, they buy fewer things, right? So the return on investment in languages and stuff like that is really low, and so it's not a smart decision. Now, I of course have these ideas as well, but I think that if I chose this second set of ideas, I don't know, it seems like I'm going off topic. That's why I, generated a new set of ideas to really kind of show that this is a waste of money, right? And of course, spending money to promote could be helpful. It, helps to, of course, preserve cultural diversity. That's a good thing in general, of course. And then you also have preserve diversity. What else? Why else is it a good idea? Okay, a very small number of people. Like, exactly, they're spoken by such a small number of people that you would never have a good return. It's not even low, it might even be negative. It might just be useless. You don't get anything for the money that you spend preserving that language, because it's not a language of business, commerce, stuff like that, right? So it doesn't make any sense. But let's find some positives as well. Preserve cultural diversity, support people, citizens that speak those languages. You can use short forms, by the way. So, because of course, when you're making notes, you don't want to spend tons and tons of time, right? I would say note making should take you maybe 5-6 minutes, not more than that, Of course, everyone's different. I mean, it might take you 7 or 8 minutes, and that could be okay because everyone's got a different typing speed, right? So it depends. Sometimes you might need more time. Sometimes you might need less time, especially if it's a question that you're, familiar with, or something that's, something that interests you, right? So everyone's different ultimately, but I think that's a good rule of thumb, 5 to 6 minutes, not much more than that. Support people that speak those languages. And what else? Why should you promote an endangered language? Could be useful for historians, and of course, to preserve literature, something like that. I guess that's kind of the same thing as cultural diversity. So yeah, in the future, you don't want the language to die out completely, because that community then we would never be able to in the future. We would never know that such a community existed. So that's that. And that's it. So I'm going to write my introduction, several languages. So the topic is languages. So I'm going to write something about languages. The absolute, richness that exists in terms of how many languages we have on Earth is amazing. All the languages are largely considered to be a tool of communication. They also serve other purposes, especially in terms of, promoting and preserving cultural heritage, very cultural practices, and people's heritage. Right. A nice sentence. Okay, and then what's the I'll probably say, although I've already started with although, so I cannot although languages are largely considered to be a tool of communication, they also serve other equally important purposes, I would say. Okay, what else? And then I'm going to say essentially that it's, I think that this is good. Although, spending money on promoting such languages could be a good idea, despite the fact that endangered or at risk language, I'll choose at risk over here, and endangered. Whoops, there should be a space there. Endangered languages. Do need some public support or government support. Supporting endangered languages or offering official support to endangered languages may initially seem like a good practice. The risks in doing so are unparalleled and not overlooked. There we go. So that's the introduction. It's a bit big. It's 59 words. Okay. That's not big. That's perfectly average. Okay. Now, you don't have to write something so complicated. You can just write it simply, Although it's a good idea to do this, it also presents a range of issues that we need to take into consideration. Something like that. So spending public money could be helpful. And let me also have a look at, cultural diversity. I think that's the most important thing. And then this is also related. Okay. The biggest reason to do this, the biggest reason to, fund these languages is to preserve the cultural diversity of a nation, so that it continues to form a part of the social and cultural fabric. But that might be too complicated, so I'll keep it simple here instead. The biggest reason to fund these languages is to preserve the cultural diversity of a nation so that it does not disappear. Right? And continues to be an active part of a country's, society. Yeah, society and culture. I've already said culture, so let's not repeat ourselves too often. And then another related part is also that, of course, when you support the language, you support the people that speak those languages. As a natural consequence of doing this, people or native speakers are also supported and feel and are able to live out and practice their culture to its fullest extent, which allows them to feel welcome in society instead of because you have many people, like you have natives in America, Canada, New Zealand, and they have their own languages, and they have different languages too. So, of course, I mean, they all speak English more or less. Not all of them, of course, but I mean, they have to, right? Because it's the country's language. I mean, that's how you communicate with everyone. But English isn't really their native language. But if they're forced to speak in English only, and there's no support to help them learn their native languages, they would feel alienated. That, okay, I mean, yeah, sure, you can use this language, but I can't speak my native tongue. So that's not exactly very good for their mental health, right? Welcome in society instead of alienated. So, as a natural consequence of doing this, native speakers of such languages are also supported and are able to live out and practice their culture to its fullest extent, which allows them to feel welcome in society instead of alienated. Additionally, no, I'm not going to use additionally. I could use something else though. Maybe something like, I don't like the term additionally, it seems too simplistic. It's not wrong. You can of course use it. I just prefer using nicer things. Let me think of something nicer. Okay, another important, well, I don't want to use another important because that's too simple. That's too simple. Let's use something different. Welcome and supported. No, that's okay. Oh, I've got this, I've got the biggest reason. Now, you might be familiar with other transitions in addition, furthermore, moreover, etc., etc. And those are all great. You can use them to get a band 7. You don't really need much more. But you might see that I don't usually use this, simplistic ones, only because I want to give you a better example. That's the only reason. See, when I say, okay, this is a band 9 level response or essay, that I mean that, right? Because you have to have better examples. So if you keep looking at content that's at a higher band level, you learn a lot of things. So that's why it's not wrong. Like I could just write moreover and continue my sentence. Nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine for a band 7, even 7.5. You don't have to worry about that. But I just want to give some good examples. So I like to think about the transitions. It has to flow smoothly from one sentence to another. The reader should have a very smooth, easy, positive experience. That's the goal. And when you think about that, that automatically helps you become a better writer. And you can use these skills even in everyday life. When you write an email, for example, right? Everybody writes emails. So think about these things. Like, is the person reading going to understand what I'm saying? Is it going to be easy? All these things help to make you a better author. Okay. I need to come over here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, on a related note. Such a policy will also help future, historians and literature enthusiasts to be able to decipher text and learn more, right? Communities, cultures. There we go. We'll also have future stories, thereby, keeping them alive. Communities, cultures, what's wrong? Okay, and then finally, I also have a final sentence, a concluding sentence. That's optional, but I like doing that. So if you don't want to do it, that's fine. You don't need to do that. But again, this is just how I like doing things. So it all, nicely wraps up. So, supporting such languages. Government supporting such languages would be of help to these communities. These, yeah. There we go. And I've used weak modal verbs, so. And are also supported, would be, would feel supported, and would feel supported, would be able to. You have to use weak modal verbs. Would also, might also. I can change that one to might. There we go. There we go. So that's a total of 130. Okay, great. And then we have our next paragraph. However, spending taxpayer money, or you can also, there's another word called exchequer, very fancy, very formal. You can use that. It's a nice term. Very few people ever use that. I actually came across it for the first time in a newspaper when I was a child. And I was like, who's this exchequer? That's a strange term. So I went to the dictionary and we had this huge, like, 2-kilo heavy book, huge big dictionary. And I searched it up and that's taxpayer. Okay. Spending taxpayer money for such causes is unwise. This is largely because money is... it's not an infinite resource. Money is a limited resource. And although the government has the power to print more money at will, this is a bad policy. This is a bad idea, of course. I've already used unwise, so I'm not going to use unwise again. This is hardly a smart thing to do, as that raises causes inflation and a depreciation of currency's value. Limited resource. Okay, gone into economics here. Okay, which is good, I mean, of course, see, you might be, I studied economics, so this kind of stuff comes easy to me. But you might have some other kind of background. Maybe you have a science background. Maybe you have a languages background. So, you can actually use the skills and information that you have into all these things. It's great, Support, okay, what's my second idea? Less money on other causes. When public money is spent, when the exchequer is forced to fund, let's use that word, has to fund such policies, there will naturally be less money available for other more important causes such as education, healthcare, and poverty elimination, to name a few. Which is not just unfair, but it's not unfair, which is plainly just poor policy. That's a poor policy, which would be an awful policy decision. When the exchequer has to fund such policies, there will naturally be less money available for other more important causes such as education, healthcare, or poverty elimination, to name but a few, which would be an awful policy. I've already used, okay, let's choose something, which would be an awful decision. There we go. Okay, and the last idea, return on investment. Perhaps the strongest indicator of the lack of, wisdom, no, perhaps strongest indicator of the strongest signal of how bad this idea would be is the fact that the strongest indicator of the lack of, no, I know it's a bit of a complicated phrase, but that's just how I tend to write, because everyone's got a different writing style, right? Now, I'm not saying you have to write exactly the same way, but I tend to have a more, because I read a lot of, technical, economic, and the kind of literature that I read has an impact on how I write. That's the same for everyone, by the way. So I'm not saying you have to copy the way I write. This is just how I naturally write. Perhaps the strongest indicator of the weakness, or maybe lack quality. No. I'm kind of think of a phrase, and of course I can spend time thinking, because if I look at the timer right now, it's only 25 minutes, and you get 40 minutes in the exam. I am almost done with the thing, so I can spend time. I do this all the time. Like even when I'm learning a bunch of languages, and I almost always finish my exams way before time. So I spend a lot of time thinking, but I would not recommend you to spend a lot of time thinking, right? Because everyone's different. And now, of course, I've had students that were very quick writers, and so they could afford to spend more time thinking and refine their ideas and think about their word choice a lot more. But for the average student, of course, that's not a good idea, because it's time limited. Okay, let's see. Perhaps the strongest indicator to take into consideration, before funding such ideas is with the return on investment. Investment generated by let's say that is generated and in the case of funding endangered languages, return. Such a return would either be very low or entirely negative. You don't get any money back when you put money into this kind of stuff. So the strongest factor, maybe not indicator, factor, perhaps the most important factor is the return on investment that will be generated. That would be generated in the future. In the case of endangered languages, that return would either be very low or entirely negative. There we go. And so, therefore, it makes little to no sense, no financial sense. Even if it makes emotional sense, it doesn't make financial sense. Support such an idea. There we go. It's unwise. It makes no sense. There we go. Wow, this is 144. This is 130. Okay, and then we come to our conclusion, which barely takes any time. So you start with, in conclusion, it is evident that although offering, public support, monetary support for endangered languages may at first appear to be a reasonable thing to do. Upon further evaluation, it is clearly not very smart, but I cannot use the word smart because it's a bit casual to say, oh, that's not very smart. So upon further evaluation, clearly not the best use of taxpayer money. Yep. If policies were enforced willy-nilly, but willy-nilly again is a very casual term, you cannot use that in an essay. It's always these terms that come to my mind, and I have to think, no, you cannot use that in a formal text, of course. So if public funds are not used or dispensed appropriately, could spell doom for the country's future. Simple. If you don't use money appropriately, that's going to be bad news for the country's future. Of course, that is also a very casual way of saying things, but what I have over here, if public funds are not used appropriately, is spell doom. That's also a nice phrase, a nice, collocation, two words that go with each other for the country's future. There we go. So that's the whole thing. Let's have a look at the word count. That's 382. Okay, and there's your introduction, paragraph, body paragraph 1. You can pause the screen so you can read body paragraph 2, and finally the conclusion. So that was fun, and I hope you learned a bit as well. I hope that you found that useful. If you have, don't forget to click on the like button and share these videos with people that you know are preparing for the exam. If you have any feedback, suggestions, comments, whatever, just drop a comment down below and I'll reply to you soon. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.